I will never be haunted by these children again. The chilling thought cut through the frigid forest air, muffling the desperate whimpers of the little ones. She left them there, two twin brothers, wrapped in a thin blanket, at the mercy of the treacherous night and the cruelty their own stepmother had orchestrated. The wind howled like a lament. Shadows danced menacingly among the ancient trees, and the forest responded with its own sinister sounds. A shiver of pure terror ran down the boys' spines when a distant guttural roar echoed, not from just any predator, but from something grand and wild. And what was to come would forever change the fate of that cruel stepmother and the innocent abandoned twins. The roar, now closer, made the ground vibrate beneath the twins' tiny bodies. Their hearts beat erratically, like small drums of fear in their chests. Miguel, the elder by a few minutes, squeezed Pedro's small hand. Pedro whimpered softly, his face buried in the thin blanket that barely protected them from the biting cold. They huddled even closer, eyes wide in the darkness, awaiting the inevitable. It was then that a colossal shadow emerged from among the twisted trunks, its amber eyes glowing like embers in the gloom. It was not a wolf, nor a bear, but a creature of wild beauty and unquestionable power, a majestic tiger, with dark stripes that blended perfectly with the night. The feline stopped a few feet away, its warm breath fogging the frigid air. The boys held their breath, terror paralyzing every fiber of their small bodies. Pedro squeezed his eyes shut, awaiting the end, while Miguel, in an act of instinctive courage, tried to embrace his brother as if he could protect him with his own fragile body. But the tiger did not advance. Instead, it let out a low growl, almost a murmur, and turned its head, sniffing the air. Its tense muscles, its imposing posture, did not indicate an attack on the boys, but rather an attentive vigilance, as if it were listening for other sounds in the forest, sounds that the small humans could not discern. Suddenly, the tiger moved with surprising agility, not towards the twins, but towards a dense thicket from which a pair of hungry eyes gleamed in the darkness. A powerful, guttural roar, different from the first, echoed through the forest, and the hidden creature retreated with a frightened squeal. The tiger returned to its position, sitting majestically, and its eyes fixed on the boys, now with an intensity that seemed less threatening and more protective. Miguel slowly opened his eyes and met the feline's gaze. There was a strange serenity there, an ancestral force that seemed to envelop the two brothers in an invisible shield. The cold still bit at them, but the sharpest fear began to give way to confusion, a spark of hope. Meanwhile, far away, in the opulence of her mansion, the stepmother slept a peaceful sleep, lulled by the certainty that her problems had been resolved. A cruel smile played on her thin lips, imagining the fortune that would now be entirely hers. She could not imagine that in the darkness of the forest, nature was already weaving a web of justice, and that the roar she thought was the twins' end was, in fact, the beginning of their salvation. The news of the abandonment, though not yet confirmed, began to whisper through nearby villages, like dry leaves carried by the wind, preparing the ground for the relentless truth that would come to light. The tiger, the unexpected guardian, lay down at a safe but visible distance, its amber eyes fixed on the little ones, promising a vigil that defied all human logic and resonated with the purest compassion. The tiger, an unexpected guardian, lay down at a safe but visible distance, its amber eyes fixed on the little ones, promising a vigil that defied human logic and resonated with the purest compassion. Miguel, exhausted, felt his body heavy, but the feline's presence, once terrifying, now brought a strange sense of security. He looked at Pedro, who was still trembling, his lips purplish from the cold. With an effort, Miguel pulled the blanket up a little higher, covering his brother with a tenderness that surpassed his own fragility. The tiger let out a deep sigh, a sound that vibrated in the air, and Miguel felt that the animal understood their pain. The night advanced and the cold intensified, but with every sound from the forest, the tiger raised its head, its ears alert, a vigilant sentinel against any danger that dared to approach. In the mansion, the stepmother awoke with the first rays of sun, a satisfied smile on her lips. She stretched in the sumptuous bed, savoring the luxury. Finally, she thought, everything is mine. Her eyes scanned the opulent room, imagining how she would reorganize the fortune without the shadow of the heirs. Guilt did not touch her. In her hardened heart, there was only the cold certainty of having done what was necessary to secure her future. She got up, walked to the window, and observed the well-kept garden, oblivious to the drama in the forest and the gossip that was forming. In the neighboring village, the sudden absence of the twins did not go unnoticed. Donna Elsa, the baker who always offered the boys a piece of cake, frowned. "I haven't seen them today," she murmured to her husband, Senor Joaquim the carpenter, and the stepmother, so cold, so indifferent. Whispers began discreetly. The news that the twins had disappeared from the mansion, and the stepmother's indifference, fueled the curiosity and concern of the residents. The simple kindness of those people who had known the boys since birth contrasted with the rich woman's cruelty. Back in the forest, dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, but the cold was still biting. Miguel and Pedro, huddled together, felt hungry. Pedro coughed weakly, and Miguel hugged him tighter. The tiger, sensing their discomfort, moved closer, forming a barrier against the frigid wind. Its eyes, once embers in the darkness, now reflected the soft light of dawn, and Miguel swore he saw a glimmer of tenderness there. The feline, with its imposing and silent presence, was the only comfort for the little ones, a beacon of hope. The image of the tiger, majestic and protective, contrasted painfully with the image of the stepmother, who was descending to have her breakfast, served on fine china, while planning her next steps to consolidate her wealth. She smiled, a smile devoid of any human warmth, unaware that her cruelty had already planted the seeds of her own ruin. The forest, with its secrets and intrinsic justice, was about to reveal the truth, and the roar of the tiger's compassion would be heard far beyond the forest's limits, reaching the hearts of those who sought truth and justice for the innocent twins. The web of fate was tightening, and the stepmother, in her arrogance, was about to discover that nature has its own laws, and that greed rarely goes unpunished. The web of fate was tightening, and the stepmother, in her arrogance, was about to discover that nature has its own laws, and that greed rarely goes unpunished. In the forest, the sun rose lazily, filtering through the damp leaves and revealing the shimmering dew. Miguel felt his stomach rumble painfully, and his throat was scratchy with thirst. Pedro, weaker, was nestled against him, his tiny body trembling from cold and exhaustion. The tiger, sensing the little one's discomfort, let out a soft growl, almost a purr, and moved a little closer, lying down so that its massive body blocked the cold wind that was still blowing. Miguel, with heavy eyes, watched the feline. The dark stripes seemed to dance in the morning light, and the animal's warm breath created a delicate mist in the icy air. There was no more terror, only a strange acceptance and silent gratitude for the living barrier that protected them. The tiger, with a slow and careful movement of its head, brushed its snout against the boy's blanket, a gesture Miguel interpreted as a sign of affection, an unexpected touch from such a wild creature. Meanwhile, in the mansion, the stepmother enjoyed a lavish breakfast, served on fine porcelain. She leafed through a jewelry catalogue, a smug smile on her lips. "Now, yes," she thought, "I can have what I always wanted, without unwanted interruptions." Her slender, ringed fingers traced the images of gleaming necklaces and earrings, completely oblivious to the twins' misery and the web of gossip spreading. Guilt was an unknown emotion to her. Her heart, wrapped in layers of selfishness, did not allow compassion to touch her. She was planning a trip, a luxurious cruise, to celebrate her freedom, without imagining that true freedom was about to be taken from her. In the village, Donna Elsa and Senor Joaquim's concern had turned into a more serious conversation. They were in the square, where some neighbors gathered for the morning market. "It's strange, isn't it?" said Donna Elsa, clutching her shawl to her chest. "The boys always came for sweets. And the stepmother. Not a word." Senor Joaquim, with a furrowed brow, agreed. "I delivered a wood order to the mansion yesterday, and she didn't even mention the little ones. She seemed too satisfied." Whispers turned into clearer voices. The twins' absence, the stepmother's indifference, all added up to a feeling of discomfort that hung in the air. The news that the boys hadn't been seen for over a day began to spread like wildfire, touching the simple, kind hearts of the residents. Donna Elsa, with her generous soul, decided she couldn't stand idly by. "Someone needs to go there, Senor Joaquim. Ask around. It's not right for children so small to just disappear like that." Her determined gaze met her husband's, who nodded seriously. "You're right, Elsa. I'll talk to the forest ranger. He knows the forest well and might have seen something, and then we'll go to the mansion. We can't let evil hide under the veil of wealth." The seed of justice, planted by the stepmother's cruelty, began to germinate in the altruistic hearts of the village, driven by human connection and love for the little ones, who were now fighting for their lives under the silent protection of an unexpected guardian in the vastness of the forest. The web of fate was tightening, and the stepmother, in her arrogance, was about to discover that nature has its own laws and that greed rarely goes unpunished. In the forest, the sun rose lazily, filtering through the damp leaves and revealing the shimmering dew. Miguel felt his stomach rumble painfully, and his throat was scratchy with thirst. Pedro, weaker, was nestled against him, his tiny body trembling from cold and exhaustion. The tiger, sensing the little one's discomfort, let out a soft growl, almost a purr, and moved a little closer, lying down so that its massive body blocked the cold wind that was still blowing. Miguel, with heavy eyes, watched the feline. The dark stripes seemed to dance in the morning light, and the animal's warm breath created a delicate mist in the icy air. There was no more terror, only a strange acceptance and silent gratitude for the living barrier that protected them. The tiger, with a slow and careful movement of its head, brushed its snout against the boy's blanket, a gesture Miguel interpreted as a sign of affection, an unexpected touch from such a wild creature. Meanwhile, in the mansion, the stepmother, Senora Veronica, enjoyed a lavish breakfast, served on fine porcelain. She leafed through a jewelry catalogue, a smug smile on her lips. "Now yes," she thought, "I can have what I always wanted without unwanted interruptions." Her slender, ringed fingers traced the images of gleaming necklaces and earrings, completely oblivious to the twins' misery and the web of gossip spreading. Guilt was an unknown emotion to her. Her heart, wrapped in layers of selfishness, did not allow compassion to touch her. She was planning a trip, a luxurious cruise, to celebrate her freedom, without imagining that true freedom was about to be taken from her. In the village, Donna Elsa and Senor Joaquim's concern had turned into a more serious conversation. They could no longer wait. With determined steps, they headed to the small house of the forest ranger, Elias Almeida, a man whose face was marked by the sun and life in the woods, known for his integrity. "Senor Almeida," Donna Elsa began, her voice choked with worry as she clutched her shawl to her chest. "The twins, Miguel and Pedro. They've disappeared from the mansion. The stepmother doesn't seem to care." The ranger, with his habitually serious expression, listened attentively, his eyes fixed on the distressed faces of the neighbors. He knew the boys, to whom he always offered a fruit when he saw them at the edge of the forest. "Disappeared, you say, and the lady, the stepmother, didn't report it to the police?" he asked, his voice grave, already feeling a chill. Senor Joaquim intervened with a furrowed brow. "She's acting as if nothing happened, Senor Almeida. The village is uneasy. We fear the worst." Ranger Almeida sighed deeply, a deep wrinkle forming between his thick eyebrows. "This is very serious. No child should be abandoned to their fate." His voice, though calm, carried an unwavering firmness. "I will investigate. I'll start at the mansion, speak with Senora Veronica, and then conduct an exhaustive patrol of the forest. I won't rest until I have news of the little ones." The determination in his eyes was a balm for Dona Elsa and Senor Joaquim, who exchanged glances of relief and hope. They knew that with Senor Almeida on the case, the truth would come to light. The seed of justice, planted by the stepmother's cruelty, began to germinate in the altruistic hearts of the village, driven by human connection and love for the little ones, who were now fighting for their lives under the silent protection of an unexpected guardian in the vastness of the forest. The seed of justice, planted by the stepmother's cruelty, began to germinate in the altruistic hearts of the village, driven by human connection and love for the little ones, who were now fighting for their lives under the silent protection of an unexpected guardian in the vastness of the forest. Forest Ranger Elias Almeida, with determination etched on his face, bid farewell to Dona Elsa and Senor Joaquim. His firm steps echoed on the beaten earth as he headed towards Senora Veronica's mansion. The forest, his companion for so many years, seemed to whisper secrets with the rustling of leaves, and Elias felt a tightness in his chest. He knew every trail, every stream, and the thought of such small children lost there without help turned his stomach. He remembered Miguel and Pedro's smiles, the curious eyes that followed him when he passed near the mansion. The stepmother's indifference was a dark mystery he was determined to unravel. Justice, for Elias, was not just a written law, but a deep sense of duty towards the most vulnerable. In the mansion, Senora Veronica had just finished her breakfast. She rose from the table, stretching her arms with a satisfied sigh, and walked to the living room, where a servant awaited her to discuss travel preparations. Her plans for the luxury cruise were taking shape, and the image of sunny beaches and exotic cocktails filled her mind. The sound of the doorbell, however, interrupted her thoughts. She frowned, annoyed by the interruption. "Who could that be at this hour?" she murmured, in a dry tone of voice. The servant, a young and timid man, returned a few minutes later, his face pale. "Senora Veronica, it's the forest ranger Elias Almeida. He insists on speaking with you." A chill ran down the stepmother's spine, but she quickly regained her haughty composure. "The forest ranger? Why would he be looking for me?" she asked, though her heart already knew the answer. She tried to disguise her sudden anxiety, adjusting the pearl necklace around her neck. "Tell him to wait in the drawing room and prepare some tea. I don't want to seem rude, even if he is bothering me." Her voice was icy, and her eyes, for a brief instant, revealed a flicker of fear, quickly replaced by anger. Meanwhile, in the vastness of the forest, Miguel and Pedro were weaker. The sun was already high, but the night's cold still lingered in their bones. Pedro coughed more frequently, and his little face was feverish. Miguel, with the little energy he had left, caressed his brother's forehead. The tiger, which had remained at a protective distance, noticed the change in the boy's condition, its amber eyes fixed on Pedro, and a low, worried growl escaped its throat. It moved a little closer, lying down so as to envelop the little ones with the warmth of its massive body, a living barrier against the relentless cold and the invisible dangers of the forest. Miguel, feeling the animal's warm breath, nestled against it, seeking unexpected comfort. Hunger and thirst were torturous, but the tiger's presence was a balm for the boys' souls, a silent promise that they were not alone. In the village, Dona Elsa and Senor Joaquim did not stand still. They talked with more neighbors, and the story of the missing twins spread like a sad echo. The community, united by empathy and concern for the children, began to mobilize. The women gathered, exchanging apprehensive glances, while the men discussed the possibility of organizing a search. The human connection, so strong in those simple people, contrasted sharply with the stepmother's coldness. The seed of justice, now watered by solidarity, began to sprout, and Senora Veronica's fate was about to intertwine with that of the forest and its unexpected guardians. Forest Ranger Elias Almeida entered the mansion's large drawing room, his clear eyes scanning the ostentatious luxury with a calm that contrasted with the growing tension in his chest. Senora Veronica awaited him, sitting upright in a velvet armchair, a forced smile on her lips and an untouched teacup before her. "Senor Almeida," she began, her voice polite but with a thinly disguised thread of irritation. "To what do I owe the honor of this rather unusual visit?" She gestured with her ringed hand, indicating the armchair opposite, but her eyes showed no hospitality. Elias, undeterred by her haughty demeanor, held her gaze firmly. "Senora Veronica, I've come concerning the twins, Miguel and Pedro. The village is deeply worried about their disappearance." The stepmother let out a brief, dry laugh, which sounded more like a snap. "Disappearance? What nonsense! The children are fine. They must have gone to play somewhere, as they always do. They're mischievous boys, you know." Her slender, ringed fingers tapped on the rim of the teacup, an accelerated rhythm that did not go unnoticed by Elias, a man accustomed to reading the most subtle signs. "With all due respect, madam," Elias continued, his voice maintaining a respectful but firm tone, "it's not common for children so small to be gone for so long without their family worrying, and the village says they haven't been seen for over a day. Furthermore, you haven't reported it to the police, nor shown any apprehension to the neighbors." Veronica stood up abruptly, her mask of calm visibly beginning to crack. "And should I? I am a busy woman. I have my own affairs. I'm not a nanny to run after brats." Her voice rose, and a flash of fury, mixed with latent fear, crossed her eyes. Elias, however, did not look away. "Madam, the forest is no place for children. There are dangers, and the cold of the night." He paused dramatically, and his eyes, accustomed to observing every detail of nature, fell upon Veronica's shoes. There was a small, almost imperceptible trace of dark, damp earth clinging to the sole of one of her elegant heels. Earth that Elias recognized well, the same humus-rich soil that covered the floor of the denser forest, far from the mansion's well-kept gardens. Elias's heart skipped a beat. A chill ran through Elias. That detail, so small yet so significant, was an unexpected turning point. The stepmother had been in the forest, and not just on the outskirts. "Madam, have you been in the forest recently?" Elias asked, his voice now laden with a new and dangerous certainty. Veronica paled, her eyes wide, and she took a step back, stumbling slightly on the edge of the Persian rug. "Me? In the forest? What nonsense! Never! I'm a city woman. I detest wild nature, full of insects and mud." Her denial was too quick, too vehement, and her eyes darted away, betraying the panic that was beginning to consume her, revealing a deep crack in her facade of indifference. Meanwhile, in the forest, Pedro trembled uncontrollably, his high fever making him delirious, muttering incomprehensible words. Miguel hugged him with all his strength, his own tears streaming down his exhausted, dirty face. The tiger, sensing the gravity of the situation, let out a low growl, almost a lament of concern, and moved even closer. With a delicate movement, it gently licked Pedro's feverish forehead, a gesture of pure compassion, an instinct that transcended the barrier of species and offered vital warmth. In the village, mobilization was complete. Donna Elsa and Senor Joaquim led a group of volunteers equipped with flashlights, blankets, and water bottles. "Let's split up!" exclaimed Senor Joaquim, his voice firm and full of hope. "We'll start at the edge of the forest, near the old trail that leads to the stream. We won't stop until we find them." Hope and determination shone in everyone's eyes, driven by human connection and love for the little ones, who were now fighting for their lives. The web of justice was now tightening not only in the mansion with the subtle revelation, but also in the hearts of the forest and the village, converging inexorably towards the truth. Forest Ranger Elias Almeida kept his gaze fixed on Senora Veronica, who was backing away, her face pale and eyes wide as if caught red-handed. "You were in the forest, weren't you?" he repeated, his voice calm but laden with authority. Veronica's panic was almost palpable. She tried to force a smile, an uncontrollable tremor on her lips. I must have stepped somewhere damp in the garden, Senor Almeida. Last night's rain. That's all it is." Her voice was a hoarse whisper, gesturing nervously. Elias, however, was not fooled. "Senora Veronica, the earth on your shoe is not from the garden. It's the dark, humus-rich soil from the depths of the forest." He took a step forward. "Where are Miguel and Pedro, madam? Tell me the truth. The village is searching for them." Veronica's mask of indifference crumbled. Her eyes filled with desperate fury, and she clenched her fists. "They're not my problem. Those brats only caused me trouble. I left them where they belonged." The confession, though not explicit, was clear in her voice, laden with hatred and despair. Elias felt a knot in his throat, the confirmation of his worst fears. The stepmother's cruelty was undeniable, and justice was beginning to manifest. Meanwhile, in the forest, the situation of the small twins was desperate. Pedro was unconscious, his breathing weak and irregular. Miguel, his heart heavy with anguish, felt his brother's tiny body burning with fever. He hugged him desperately, trying to pass on the little warmth he had left, but the morning cold still bit at their skin. Tears streamed silently down Miguel's face, mixing with dirt and dew. He murmured his brother's name, a silent prayer for a miracle that seemed increasingly distant. The tiger, their silent guardian, perceived the gravity of the situation. Its amber eyes, once calm, now showed deep restlessness. It let out a low growl, almost a lament of concern, and stood up. With a delicate movement, it nudged its snout against Miguel's shoulder, as if encouraging him to move. Then the majestic feline turned its head in a specific direction, sniffing the air intensely, and let out a muffled roar, a sound that seemed to carry a mixture of alarm and urgency. It seemed to indicate a path, a hope amidst the despair that enveloped them. In the village, the search for the boys gained momentum. Donna Elsa and Senor Joaquim led a determined group, whose voices spread through the forest, calling out Miguel and Pedro's names. "Miguel, Pedro!" The calls echoed, full of hope and concern. The group advanced with difficulty, dodging branches and roots, but the determination in their hearts was greater than their fatigue. With each step, the hope of finding the boys was renewed. Suddenly, a distant but unmistakable sound cut through the air, making their hearts leap. It was not a hunting roar, but a deep, resonant sound, laden with urgency and a hint of desperation, that seemed to come from the exact direction where the fabric had been found. "What was that?" asked one of the volunteers, his heart pounding in his chest. Senor Joaquim, a man of the forest, recognized the sound with a pang of surprise and admiration. "It's a tiger, but it doesn't sound like an attack roar. It sounds like a call, a warning. His eyes widened. Hope, already strong, transformed into an almost mystical certainty. "Come on, faster, they're there!" exclaimed Donna Elsa, tears in her eyes, driven by a force that was not just physical, but of pure love and altruism. The forest, which once seemed a labyrinth of dangers, now opened up, guided by a wild sound and unwavering faith. Justice was on its way, and nature's compassion was revealing itself in its most majestic form. "Senora Veronica, there's no denying it anymore. Your words and behavior have confirmed what we feared." Elias Almeida spoke with an unwavering voice. The stepmother, pale and trembling, recoiled, bumping into a table. Her panic was visible. "No, I can't go. I didn't do anything wrong. They were provoking me." Elias, impassive, retorted, "It doesn't matter what you think. What matters is the law and the lives of these children. The village is mobilized. You need to tell us where you left them." He extended his hand. The terror of being exposed and having her freedom stolen was a harsh blow. She swallowed hard, the image of the crews fading into fear and regret. In the forest, the tiger's roar dissipated, but the urgency remained. Miguel, leaning against the feline's warm flank, felt every step. Pedro, unconscious, was a fragile weight in his arms. Miguel held him tight, trying to infuse him with strength. The tiger, with wisdom, chose the path, swerving around roots and bushes, heading towards the clearing where the sun seemed inviting. Miguel, eyes closed from fatigue, saw blurs, but the tiger's movement and warmth were a tenuous thread of hope. The search party, propelled by the mysterious roar, advanced with renewed energy. Donna Elsa and Señor Joaquim, at the front, cleared the way, their eyes scanning every corner. "The sound came from there!" exclaimed Donna Elsa. The volunteers, hearts pounding, followed, their flashlights swaying. Fatigue was real, but the image of the twins' innocent faces fueled their determination. They shouted the boys' names, their voices mixing with their footsteps and the rustling of leaves, a symphony of hope and solidarity. "We can't stop. They're close. I feel it," said Señor Joaquim, his voice hoarse, but his eyes shone with unwavering faith. He remembered the fragment of blue blanket and the tiger's roar, clear signs that nature and justice were working together. Tiago, the woodcutter, pointed to a small stream. "Señor Joaquim, if they've been around here, the water can be a guide. Children always look for water." The suggestion lit a new spark in the group, and they redirected their efforts, following the winding course of the stream. With each bend, hope increased. Elias Almeida, in the mansion, pressed Veronica, who was now crying, her defenses crumbling under the weight of truth and fear. I left them near that stream, a little past the big rock," she murmured between sobs, her voice almost inaudible, but her words were a beacon for Elias. The confession finally came, laden with desperation and a belated terror of the consequences. The tiger, sensing the proximity of water, quickened its pace. Miguel, exhausted, felt a splash of cold water on his face, and the sight of the stream, glistening under the sun's rays, rekindled a spark of hope. He looked at the tiger, childlike eyes full of silent gratitude, and held Pedro even tighter. The wild guardian, with a final soft growl, stopped near the bank, as if handing over its precious cargo to the next stage of the journey, a stage that promised human connection and the end of their solitude. The forest, a silent witness, awaited the reunion. Elias Almeida, with Veronica's confession echoing, felt revulsion and urgency. "You will come with me now. We need to act fast." He led her firmly out, giving her no time for objections. Veronica, her face disfigured by panic and tears, stumbled, her luxurious life crumbling before the reality of her actions. The freedom she so cherished slipped away like sand, replaced by the shadow of approaching justice. The servant, his eyes wide, barely dared to breathe. The mansion, once a symbol of power and opulence, now seemed a stage for the downfall of a tyrannical queen. In the forest, the scene was one of silent, moving, and beautiful drama. Miguel, leaning against the tiger's flank, felt the animal's vital warmth, an anchor in his despair. Pedro, pale and inert, remained in his arms, a weight that grew lighter with each step of the guardian. The stream murmured softly, and the sunlight filtered through the treetops danced on the water, creating a path of hope. The tiger, with instinctive wisdom, stopped, its amber eyes fixed on Miguel, a look that seemed to say, "I have brought you this far. Hope is in your hands." With a final soft growl, it moved away a little, but remained visible, an imposing and protective presence, watching from a distance. It was at that exact moment that a sound of human voices broke the silence of the forest. "Miguel! Pedro!" The calls, laden with anguish and love, drew closer. Miguel, with a start, raised his head. His eyes, blurred by exhaustion, glimpsed figures among the trees. Donna Elsa and Señor Joaquim, at the head of the group, burst into the clearing, their faces marked by fatigue, but their eyes full of unwavering and strong determination. The sight that presented itself to them made their hearts leap. There, by the stream, was Miguel, embracing Pedro, and a few feet away the tiger, observing them with surprising calm. A muffled cry of surprise and fear escaped Donna Elsa, but Señor Joaquim, a man of the forest, quickly understood the scene. "He protected them," he exclaimed, his voice choked with emotion and deep admiration. "The tiger saved them." The group ran towards the boys, apprehension mixed with overwhelming relief. Donna Elsa knelt beside Miguel, her arms enveloping him in a tight embrace and tears. "My boys, thank God." She felt the heat of Pedro's fever and Miguel's weakness. Señor Joaquim, with the help of Tiago, the woodcutter, carefully picked up Pedro, who was almost lifeless. The women of the group took out blankets and water bottles, their movements quick and full of compassion. The tiger, seeing the humans care for its protégés, let out a low growl, almost a sigh of duty fulfilled, and moved away. Slowly disappearing among the trees, its role as guardian handed over to human hands. The forest, witness to cruelty and compassion, saw justice and human connection manifest in their fullness. Hope, which seemed lost, blossomed again, stronger and more vibrant than ever, warming everyone's hearts. The story of the twins and their wild guardian would be told for generations, a reminder that love and solidarity can overcome any evil. The overwhelming relief that flooded the clearing was quickly replaced by a palpable urgency. Donna Elsa, with trembling hands, felt Pedro's skin burn under the relentless fever, and the little one's breathing was almost imperceptible. Miguel, though exhausted, pressed against her, his eyes watery but now with a glimmer of renewed hope. "We need to take them to the village, and fast!" exclaimed Donna Elsa, her voice choked with emotion and concern. Señor Joaquim, with the help of Tiago, the woodcutter, carefully wrapped Pedro in a warm blanket, his fragility touching everyone's heart. With coordinated and caring movements, the group organized itself. Señor Joaquim carried Pedro in his arms, protecting him from the biting cold, while Donna Elsa guided Miguel, who leaned on her, his steps faltering. The other volunteers cleared the way, lighting the trail with their flashlights, their hearts heavy with Pedro's condition, but full of unwavering determination. With each step, the forest seemed to whisper stories of danger and salvation, and the tiger's presence, though absent, hovered like a protective spirit over them. As the group advanced with their precious cargo, a distant murmur was heard. It was Elias Almeida's voice, firm and resolute, and soon after, the pale and disheveled figure of Veronica emerged from among the trees, being led by the forest ranger. Her eyes, once haughty, were now wide with terror and shame, fixed on the approaching group. Silence fell over the clearing, heavy and accusatory, as the villagers' gazes turned to the stepmother, laden with a mixture of revulsion, sadness, and a silent justice that was beginning to manifest. Veronica stumbled, her face contorted at the sight of the boy's condition. Pedro, almost inert in Señor Joaquim's arms, and Miguel, weak and dirty, nestled against Donna Elsa. The impact of the scene struck her like lightning, and a dry sob escaped her lips. It was not a sob of repentance, but of desperation and fear of the consequences that were now materializing before her eyes. Elias Almeida, keeping a firm hand on her arm, did not let her look away. "Señora Veronica, see the result of your cruelty," he said, his voice grave and without any trace of compassion. The forest, which once guarded its secret, now revealed it in all its rawness. The search party, driven by a collective force, continued its way out of the forest, taking the boys back to the safety of the village. With each step, the hope of Pedro's recovery grew stronger, fueled by everyone's love and care. Miguel, feeling the warmth of Donna Elsa's embrace, began to relax, the tension of days of terror slowly dissipating. The story of the tiger, the unexpected guardian, was already beginning to be whispered among them, a wild miracle that had united the community in a greater purpose. The journey out of the forest was more than a simple return. It was a procession of redemption and a testament to human resilience. The voices of the villagers, once full of anguish, now murmured words of comfort and promises of care. Veronica, dragged by Elias, followed behind, the image of the boys etched in her mind, the weight of her actions crushing her soul. The forest, with its shadows and lights, had revealed the truth, and now the community united to heal the wounds, promising the small twins a future of love and security, far from the evil that almost consumed them. The procession of redemption emerged from the dense forest, and the sight that presented itself to the village, which awaited anxiously at the entrance, was a mixture of relief and pain. Donna Elsa, with Miguel nestled in her arms, and Señor Joaquim, carrying Pedro wrapped in blankets, were met by a sea of worried and hopeful faces. Voices, once whispered, now rose in exclamations of compassion and gratitude. Little Pedro, pale and fragile, was immediately taken to the midwife's house, Donna Rosa, where a warm bed and medicinal teas already awaited him. Miguel, though exhausted, felt the warmth of Donna Elsa's embrace and the affection of the other women, who offered him water and sweet words, a balm for his wounded soul. As the community mobilized to care for the twins, the figure of Veronica, dragged by Elias Almeida, appeared under everyone's gaze. Her face, once haughty and made up, was now disfigured by panic and shame. The eyes of the villagers, who once feared or admired her for her fortune, now stared at her with a mixture of revulsion and deep sadness. There were no shouts or accusations, just a heavy and eloquent silence which weighed more than any words. Veronica stumbled, feeling the weight of each gaze, each silent judgment. The image of Pedro, almost lifeless, and Miguel, exhausted, etched itself into her mind, and for the first time, a pang of genuine remorse, mixed with the terror of the consequences, pierced her armor of selfishness. The fortune she so coveted now seemed worthless in the face of the loss of her dignity and freedom. In Donna Rosa's house, Pedro began to show signs of improvement. The fever, which once seemed to consume his small body, slowly yielded to the care and natural remedies. His breathing, once weak, became more regular, and a faint blush began to color his pale cheeks. Miguel, beside his brother, held his small hand, his eyes fixed on Pedro's sleeping face, a silent prayer in his childlike heart. Donna Elsa and Señor Joaquim did not leave the boy's side, their hearts overflowing with a love that seemed to have found a new home. The community, united in a greater purpose, took turns caring for them, bringing food, blankets, and prayers. weaving an invisible network of protection and affection around the orphans. Justice for Veronica did not come in the form of violence, but in the loss of everything she valued. Elias Almeida, his voice choked but firm, informed her that she would be taken to the city to answer for her actions. The mansion, her fortune, her social standing, everything crumbled. The villagers, seeing her led away, felt a mixture of relief and deep sadness for the lost soul. The forest, with its wild guardian, had delivered the boys to human compassion, and now society took charge of restoring order. The days that followed were of slow but steady recovery for the twins. Pedro opened his eyes, a fragile smile lighting his face upon seeing Miguel beside him. The bond between the brothers, forged in adversity and protected by a wild miracle, was unbreakable. Donna Elsa and Señor Joaquim, with the support of the entire village, decided that the boys would be their children, offering them a home full of love, security, and the promise of a bright future. The story of the tiger, the unexpected guardian, became a whispered legend, a reminder that compassion can roar louder than hatred, and that even in life's darkest corners, the light of altruism and human connection always finds a way to shine. Pedro and Miguel's recovery was a testament to the resilience of childhood and the healing power of love. Day after day, their small bodies regained vigor, and smiles, once so rare, blossomed with a frequency that filled Donna Elsa and Señor Joaquim's hearts with unspeakable joy and deep gratitude. Pedro, with his curious eyes, returned to exploring the world around him with energy, and Miguel, always protective, never left his brother's side, caring for him with a tenderness that moved everyone. The couple's simple yet welcoming home became a refuge of peace and affection, where every gesture, every soft word wove a new future of hope for the boys. Donna Elsa, with her wisdom and maternal tenderness, told them stories before bed, and Señor Joaquim, with his calloused hands, taught them the secrets of nature, instilling in them a deep respect for life and all beings. The community, in turn, embraced the twins as their own children. The women of the village brought cakes and toys. The men helped with small repairs to the house and ensured that the boys never lacked anything. The solidarity, which had manifested at the time of the rescue, transformed into a pillar of constant support, showing that true wealth does not lie in material possessions, but in the bonds that unite people. The story of the tiger, the majestic guardian, was told and retold, not just as an adventure tale, but as a parable about unexpected compassion and the interconnectedness of all lives. It became a symbol of protection, a reminder that nature, in its wisdom, can offer salvation where it is least expected. While the twins' lives flourished, Veronica's crumbled. Taken to the city, she faced the relentless justice of the law. Without the luster of her fortune and the influence of her status, her arrogance dissolved, revealing a small and frightened woman. The legal process was long and painful, not due to violence, but to the public exposure of her wickedness and the irreversible loss of everything she considered important. Her mansion was sold to cover legal expenses and compensation. Her expensive jewelry and clothes lost their value, and the respect she once demanded turned into contempt. She was not imprisoned in a dark cell, but in a much crueler prison, that of her own conscience and the solitude imposed by social rejection. The greed that consumed her left her with nothing, not even the peace she claimed to seek. Years passed, and Pedro and Miguel grew up strong and happy, with the unconditional love of Donna Elsa and Señor Joaquim, and the warm support of a community that loved them as their own children. They learned to love the forest, no longer as a place of fear and abandonment, but as a sanctuary of life and mystery where nature had given them a second chance. Guarded by a wild and noble spirit, the scar of that day in the forest would never completely disappear, but it transformed into a constant reminder of the strength of love, the resilience of the human soul, and the ability to overcome the greatest adversities. Their story, the story of the protective tiger and the united village, became a living legend, a beacon of hope that illuminated everyone's hearts, teaching that, however dark human intentions may be, the light of compassion and connection will always find a way to roar louder, triumphing over hatred and greed, and promising a future where love and kindness always prevail, echoing through generations as an eternal testament to the human soul. Years turned into decades, and the legend of the guardian tiger not only echoed, but became deeply rooted in the heart of the village, shaping its traditions and spirit with unwavering strength. Pedro and Miguel, now grown men, carried in their eyes the wisdom and serenity of those who had known the deepest darkness and were rescued by unexpected light. Pedro, with his innate passion for nature, became a respected forest ranger, dedicating his life to protecting the forest that once almost claimed him, but which also offered him a second chance. His steps were firm, and his gaze, attentive and keen, was always focused on preserving the delicate balance of that ecosystem, a silent and constant tribute to his wild protector. Miguel, with his immense and generous heart, followed in Donna Elsa's footsteps, becoming a beloved schoolteacher whose stories not only taught letters and numbers, but also the essential values of compassion, altruism, and the unbreakable strength of family bonds. He always began his lessons with the vivid story of two lost boys and a majestic tiger, whose roars of protection transformed into whispers of hope and a legacy of kindness. Donna Elsa and Senor Joaquim grew old with the grace and dignity of those who lived a life full of love and purpose. Their hair turned white as snow. Their hands, once agile and strong, now trembled slightly with the passing years. But their eyes shone with the same inexhaustible warmth and pride upon seeing the children the forest had delivered to them. Their home, once a simple refuge, became a beacon of wisdom and affection, where grandchildren and great-grandchildren gathered, wide-eyed, to hear the stories that became the foundation and cornerstone of their family. The community, in turn, was never the same. The incident with the twins forged an unbreakable bond of solidarity and a sense of collective purpose. No one lived in isolation anymore. Doors were always open to a neighbor, and mutual aid was a daily and spontaneous practice, not an exception. The stream where the boys were found became a place of silent pilgrimage, a constant reminder of life's fragility and the immeasurable strength of human unity. Veronica's story, on the other hand, served as a dark, cautionary tale, a bitter echo of what unchecked greed can do to a soul. She lived her final years in reclusion, stripped of everything she once valued, her soul corroded by belated regret and overwhelming solitude. There was no vengeance from the village, only the natural and relentless consequence of her choices, a testament that true justice does not always reside in physical punishment, but in the loss of what truly matters in life: respect, love, and the much-desired inner peace. Pedro and Miguel, in their adult lives, never forgot the roar that saved them. They became pillars of the community, organizing forest environmental protection initiatives and educational programs for children, ensuring that the legacy of compassion and courage was passed down from generation to generation. Each year, on the exact day of the rescue, the community gathered to celebrate life, family, and the unexpected connection with nature, transforming the event into a festival of gratitude and hope. The tiger, though never physically seen again, lived in every heart, an eternal symbol that kindness can emerge from the wildest and most improbable circumstances. Their story, a living testament to human resilience and the unwavering strength of love, would continue to shine, a beacon for future generations, proving that compassion, in its purest and most powerful form, will always roar loudest, eternally, in the heart of humanity, guiding them towards a future of light and unity.